Madison Russell, Joss Valentine, Bernie Hayes. Together they are the podcast crew, and they are a complete and utter waste of time. Honestly, I could finish the video here, but like the opening credits, there are plenty of little details to poke at. So strap in and let's take a trip to nowhere. No, not that nowhere, actual nowhere. The first member of the podcast crew we meet is Bernie Hayes, the podcast guy himself. He is a conspiracy nut of the highest order, and the film can't seem to decide if he is clever or stupid. Throughout this film he references GMOs, bugged household appliances, cyanide pills and fallout shelters, bleach showers, spy dust organic trackers, fluoride brainwashing, Illuminati and underground civilizations, lizard people, and Roswell. Normally I'd consider a character who spouted this much nonsense to be a purely comic character, but these conspiracies are woven between subjects that the podcast guy ends up being right about. On top of this, he also appears clever sometimes, like making the bloke leave the room at the start of the film, or taking pictures of Apex's secrets whilst on their sightseeing tour. But then he also acts like an idiot.
Oh my god!
It's just so massive.
Or getting caught, or trying to big himself up in front of Walter Simmons. Also, despite his apparent paranoia based on his many conspiracy theories, he is incredibly easy to find. So easy in fact, 2 teenagers find him in like 5 minutes. He has one drop, one shallow puddle of depth to his character regarding his dead wife, but nothing is done with it except to set up Chekhov's whiskey flask. More on that in a moment. This shallowness of character is reflected in the rest of the crew, and to be fair, the rest of the film. The next member of the crew we meet is Madison, who makes her return after surviving King of the Monsters. She has grown slightly from King of the Monsters. Unfortunately, not in a good way. The assertiveness she showed in using the orca to lure Ghidorah has developed into full-on arrogance. She treats her friend like an idiot, a slave, or ignores him completely. She also leads the way into unknown areas with an assuredness she should not possess. She was nearly killed multiple times in King of the Monsters because of the choices she made. Here, in Godzilla vs. Kong, any trepidation about facing unknown horrors again is not present. Madison has strong female character written all over her, and we can't have our female characters looking weak now, can we? She also has this weird parasocial relationship with the podcast guy. She believes everything he has to say regarding conspiracy theories, likes the crazy stuff he does, and 5 minutes after their meeting seems to have a disturbing connection with him.
He consumes a ton of bleach, showers with it, prevention against organic tracking technology, tradecraft.
All right, Matt, down the rabbit hole.
You sure we can trust this guy?
He says crazy shit all the time and carries a bottle of whiskey from his dead wife like a gun.
I think it's romantic.
Bitches be crazy.
By contrast, her friend Joss Valentine appears to be the layman for the average audience member to relate to, but at the same time he offers nothing to the scenes he's in other than to draw out explanations of the bullshit Madison and the podcast guy spew out.
Oh, yeah, I shower with bleach. No, what?
Tap or no tap?
Excuse me, what is tap?
Water.
He's somewhat of a simp as well. He follows Madison regardless of his doubts about what they're doing, and even steals his brother's van for her. They aren't even shown returning the van. That van had some expensive shit in it, you arseholes. Even his one and only assertive act goes nowhere and does nothing. Again, more on that in a moment. First, I want to mention the map. We go to Madison's room at one point and we are treated to shot after shot of clippings, sticky notes and a world map. These things pass by so quickly you don't get a proper look at everything. In the case of the world map, there's too much to look at in one go. Thankfully, we can pause and see that, yes, that's right, It's all terrible. We see an article or paper on the podcast guy using the current YouTube algorithm-friendly font method, but this disappears later despite clearly being next to Hawaii. We see another newspaper article, this one about Godzilla's attack, which reuses sticky notes that were on the podcast article. This makes more sense when you realise it's in the same place on the map. We see yet another cut-up article about Emma Russell, casually tossed in a pile somewhere, which seems very odd considering this is her daughter's room. Next to it is a book talking about Harim, yeah, that, which is either a subtle reference to Emma Russell being a manifestation of the devil, or it's telling us Madison is a Warhammer 40k fan. The world map gives us lots of things to talk about. Why does Madison think Godzilla is going to attack Hawaii? Or was this meant to be next to Skull Island, but the people making this film forgot to put Skull Island on the map? Where are they? Who are they? There's mentions of storm patterns and seismic activity, possibly referring to other titans, but considering there's nary a mention of them in this film, these could just be filler. There's taped on red lines that mean nothing. There's a sticky note suggesting a Monarch Apex collab, which I would have actually liked to have seen in an alternative, better film. There are more articles which I'm assuming are meant to add world building, but just make things more confusing. Nuclear cover-up? Presumably this is Titan related, but who's covering things up? Monarch aren't hiding anything after killing the monsters, so who? Antarctica a no-go zone for tourists? I didn't know Antarctica was a tourist spot. UN vetoes Godzilla? I'm assuming there's more to this headline I can't see, otherwise that's just hilarious. There's a Muto signal stuck to the bottom of the map, which is a nice reference to 2014, but that's about it. Most of this lot, I reckon, is meant to add world building where otherwise there wouldn't be any. And to be honest, these notes and articles only confuse matters. At this point in the film, we, the audience, assume Godzilla has only made one attack, and that it has only been a short time since that attack. However, there are plenty of stickers on the wall that have the word attack written on them, and some of them are associated with Godzilla. According to these stickers, Godzilla has attacked Florida, Brazil, the Sahara and Madagascar. With these notes, it is thoroughly unclear how long it's been since Godzilla's first attack, and they suggest there have been more that have just gone unmentioned. Just like the opening credits, the blink and you miss it information makes things worse if you stop to read them. The map is a singular manifestation on what I presume was the intention behind the podcast crew. Their earlier scenes introduce and reintroduce their characters, but afterwards everything they do takes us on a sightseeing tour of Apex Cybernetics. From the ruins to the basement to the tunnel to Mechagodzilla to Kevin. After their one decision to go looking at shit, they spend the rest of the film looking at shit, so we the audience get to look at shit. But after that scene, the podcast crew are left to their own devices, and based on what happens, I'm pretty sure the film didn't know what to do with them. By this point, we, the audience, have spent roughly 20 minutes exclusively following the podcast crew around. From Madison talking to her dad to watching Walter Simmons die. The film allocated a significant portion of its runtime to these three, as they bounced from one location to another, seemingly without a goal. And here, at this point in the film, we had the podcast crew finally making their mark, making a difference, putting themselves, they fluff it, and get locked out of the computer. But wait, hope is not lost. Madison's friend has a brainwave, grabs the podcast guy's drink, the one set up from earlier, and pours it into the computer. The computer shorts out. Sparks fly. Hooray! They did it! What did they do? At this point in the film, Mechagodzilla has embraced his inner Freddie Mercury.
I want to break free!
Mechagodzilla is out in the city fighting Godzilla and Kong, and the podcast crew have got it into their heads that they can help by turning off Mechagodzilla's satellite uplink. In a better film we would know why this would work, or how the podcast crew knows it would work. As it is, all we, the audience, can do is wait and see what happens next. As the computer flickers and sparks, out on the battlefield, Mechagodzilla stutters for a moment, then carries on fighting. There is an infamous part of the infamous film known as The Last Jedi, where the characters Finn and Rose go on a quest to find a hacker to help them stop the bad guys. This part of TLJ is considered a very bad part of the film, as it ultimately achieves nothing of import. Some have argued that the journey of Finn and Rose did achieve some things. They released the captured, abused ferret horse things. They killed off a bad guy, albeit a minor one, and they helped to deliver the message of failure being the greatest teacher, which is very subjective. The side quest of Finn and Rose has arguments for its achievements, even if they aren't great ones. The podcast crew achieve nothing. Actual nothing. No accomplishments, however small, no subtle subjective messaging, nothing. For all they managed to accomplish, the podcast guy should have been arrested at the start of the film for loudly declaring his illegal activities. Or killed. Either which one. Rewatching the scenes following the podcast crew around make me sad to the point of depression. So much time is spent on these complete wastes of time, whilst other characters are left underdeveloped. So many plot points and events in the film are experienced through the podcast crew's eyes that really could have been given to other characters. Mark Russell and Monarch should have made the connection between Apex and Godzilla. Walter Simmons and Renzo Ozawa could have introduced us to Mechagodzilla and Kevin. These characters could have interacted with each other, as well as their counterparts in the Hollow Earth expedition, creating a stronger cohesive whole in the plot. The only thing exclusive to the podcast crew was the tunnel between Florida and Hong Kong. And did we really need to know about that? On top of this, the romanticization of conspiracy theories is troublesome to say the least. There's mention of the fluoride water conspiracies, which are a real world thing. Their mention would be funny if so many people didn't believe in them and caused trouble because of them. Typing fluoride conspiracy into Google led me to multiple articles which state that fluoride makes you stupid, makes boys stupid, is a communist conspiracy to subvert the Western world, is a fascist conspiracy to subvert the Western world, causes cancer because everything does, and of course makes you docile, as was discovered by the Nazis or the communists or both when they added it to the water of POW camps. Of course it's all rubbish, but that doesn't stop people spouting it like it's true, just like the podcast guy. Unfortunately, because of the way Godzilla vs. Kong treats the podcast guy, it's hard to tell whether the film is making fun of such a conspiracy theory or holding it up on a pedestal. Connecting conspiracy theories to in-film events also muddies the waters of the MonsterVerse's legitimacy. The previous films had a solid grounding in the real world, only adding in fantastic elements when needed, or as extra little details to open avenues for other films to explore. This made the monsters more visually spectacular because they were in our world. Godzilla vs. Kong uses the avenues set up in previous films, but does a terrible job at exploring them. It also festoons the world with other fantastic elements that again don't get explored. To try and get my point across a bit better, I'm going to borrow from a much better film. In Close Encounters of the Third Kind, There is a scene where the protagonist and other people who have had close encounters are trying to tell their stories to the press. We know they've seen aliens, so we're with them as they struggle to get their stories believed. Then some git stands up and starts talking about Bigfoot, and we get to watch our protagonist slump in his chair as he realises it's all ruined. Having one fantastical event, one subject to look at, focuses the attention and draws people into the story. As soon as more and more elements pile on, a negative association is made. It makes the stories being told reek of desperation for attention, and the audience can't take things seriously anymore. The immersion is broken. Godzilla vs. Kong does this wholesale, damaging any investment in the story being told. If there are more films in the MonsterVerse to come, we could very well end up with a Disney Star Wars situation. Filmmakers fighting with each other over continuity, leading to terrible films. The podcast crew is an example of Godzilla vs. Kong not knowing how to world build and not knowing what to do with its characters. I can only hope that if other films do come to pass, they don't give us more podcast crews. Thank you for watching this video. This ended up being a bit longer than I thought it would, but it gave me some food for thought. We're nearing the end of this series and I hope you'll be there to join me. Feel free to do all the YouTube things, and if you want to spend some money, how about visiting my Etsy store? Link in the description. Once again, thank you for watching.